Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. Happy Boxing Day. Merry Christmas to all of our listeners. As you can see, we are in festive style. Christmas hat on for me. Issam is dressed nice and warmly because, boy, is it cold. Was it cold in Gavere today? Issam, thank you so much for being here just before the Boxing Day festivities truly get underway.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I mean, it is it is quite cold. I went outside. It's freezing. We are here a little bit warm inside now with everything going on. But the racing, especially, was in Gavere it's always one of those races that I look forward to. Special occasion, and yeah, I was quite interested in what was going to happen today, and we are going to discuss it.
Really nice course there. I think it's truly unique in the way it's a climbing course, but it also has like this long recovery section at the end. And the conditions today were something we haven't seen that much before. I've made my way to Herentals now for the people watching on video wondering why I'm not in my regular setup. And this is where I will be based for the Christmas period. So probably going to switch some things around here to make it look a bit nicer on the background, but that's where I am, and the temperatures here also reflected those course conditions in Gavere. Low, like Issam said, freezing here. I really can't recall an edition of Gavere like this. Even when this race was in February, post-Worlds, the Super Prestige year, it was not even remotely like this, so that was definitely interesting, and it made for some more group racing, starting with the men's race. We had Thibaut Nys locking in for the start, taking the whole shot, leading the charge in the first lap, but a larger leading group, some 8 riders, of course, also in there. Mathieu van der Poel, Thibaut Del Grosso, Michael van Toerenhout, the names you could expect. Then we came to an interesting part of the race where Thibaut Nys was just shooting off fireworks, missiles. New Year came early. He took a flyer on the big climb, the one that normally involves running. He just sent it up. This year it was so dry and fast that you could easily ride it. They were just sending it up there. Missile attack after missile attack, 3 laps in a row he went really hard there. The second time it was Verstringen and Van der Poel on the wheel, and the third time it was just Van der Poel on the wheel. Those two rode into the distance. Van der Poel had raced very conservatively in the first part, not making too many moves, mainly sitting at the back of the group. Technically, he did not look that great today, more on that later. But eventually, when it mattered the most, he was there. He was able to respond to Nys quite easily, at least by the looks of it, and the next lap he took over the lead. Nys sat in the wheel. This time it was Van der Poel who tried, at least by the eye, to attempt a launch up that same climb. Nys lost his pedal in the rut before, then went nearly sideways on the following bump because he wasn't fully clipped in anymore. Van der Poel was gone and dropped a super fast lap time as well. It wasn't just a mistake, it was also an acceleration. The mistake probably was an indication to him to really accelerate as well. From there, nothing anymore there was to be done. Van der Poel went on to take another victory. He cruised in the final lap. Nys also cruised in the final lap to take second. Behind the bigger battle for third place, Toon Aerts was there with Thibaut Del Grosso and also Michael van Toerenhout in the mix, Emile Verstringen, Johan Wieseur threatening just a little while, but ultimately Del Grosso in the final lap broke clear off camera, but held on just enough to fend off Aerts and Verstringen, who sprinted quite hard on the final finishing straight. Issam, I think we should be happy that Thibaut Nys gave us a fairly interesting race. He was taking a lot of initiative, but due to the course conditions, it was also quite hard to break away. I don't really know if it mattered, the tactic he had today. Van der Poel technically wasn't good, but at least to me on the eye always appeared quite strong physically still. You could see it in the first lap when on the climb he moved by 8 riders maybe to move to the front. You could see it in the other laps when he needed to move around Verstringen. There was definitely something left in the tank, and it's unfortunate that it was decided by the mistake, but I do applaud Thibaut Nys for taking the bull by the horns and really starting with the belief that he could at least make an attempt at winning this race.
Yeah, I think that would be the more positive way of looking at it, because I feel that today Nys had a very good day. He showed that, took a lot of initiative, but I think you said it there. It's not really, you don't really have the circumstances where you can make huge differences. So then I wonder, you put all the riders under pressure, including Van der Poel. We kind of know that Van der Poel always will have something left in the tank in the later phase of the race, and he will come up with incredibly fast lap. and then you will just be looking at it and be like, well, what a long race. And the mistake was eventually what did it for him. But to be honest, I think that if it wasn't for the mistake, he would have been dropped there on that climb, because you could see, and also, he was not able to recover from that mistake all too well. It's just doubled the blow mentally as well, because you were there, and then all of a sudden the race is, it's completely over in a way for victory. I think that I'm going to be a little bit harder and say that the way he was racing was unnecessary. You have to be up the front, you have to be attentive, but it was not up to him. You know that Van der Poel is going to do what he's going to do, and he would have had a bigger chance, I think, of following longer if he didn't spend all that energy in the first half of the race. And as a viewer, sure, it was hella entertaining to see him give it his all, not thinking whatsoever what is in his wheel. That attack, I think it was lap 6. That's a final lap attack, as was also said by Paul Herreigers on the broadcast. And Nice should have played it a little bit smarter. I'm not saying that he would have won if he did that, but I think he would have been closer. Do you get anything for that? Not really. So in a way, you could look at it and say he didn't lose that much by doing what he did, because he was still second. He still gave us a show. Maybe he lost arguably maybe even in a better way than he would have lost if he was sitting in the wheel more. But I also kind of look at it from a more competitive side, and I'm like, that's maybe, I would say, a missed opportunity. You could have maybe made it till the last lap in his wheel or very close, and maybe I'm too critical. And I said it before, I'm going to be here on the more critical side, but that's how I kind of looked at it, and that was the feeling that he gave me during the race and after as well.
I'm not sure I fully agree with that, because what is the place where Nice could make the difference today? Where could he put Van der Poel under pressure? That was mainly in this section spanning from pit 1 to just after pit 2. The right-hander before, then you got on the climb. He was able to put Van der Poel under pressure there because he was able to ride a sharper line, get on the power earlier. Van der Poel, number of laps was distance there. Then he needed to kind of come back in the section along the lake. And after the climb itself, okay, it's not really a place where you're going to challenge Van der Poel with how much power he has. But after the climb, you came to this famous downhill, of course, with all the red cushions. And in that downhill, Nice was already better. But really where he made the difference over Van der Poel today was that climb that came afterwards. There was this rut before. You could see Nice pedaling through the rut, really sending it. And a number of times, especially early on in the race, you saw Van der Poel not pedaling, kind of shaking his upper body, trying to keep his balance through the rut. And as a result, nobody rode up that sharp climb after better than Nice today. Nobody. And after that, also, you had, that's just after the second pit, this corner where Van der Poel kept taking a very close line, a tight line on the entrance of the corner, whereas Nice took a line further to the left. That too was a section where he was able to challenge Van der Poel. So if you're going to beat Van der Poel, I don't think there's really a case to be made that you can challenge Van der Poel in a direct battle where you just attack him. You need to kind of tighten the screws, pressure him time after time again. And look, it's super difficult. Like, it's a David versus Goliath battle. We're talking here about a Christmas miracle that you need. You need a Rudolph-like performance if you want to beat Van der Poel. And I just don't think that if Thibaut Nice would have waited all race, sat in the wheel of Van der Poel, and then just waited for Van der Poel to attack, that he would have been able to follow. Then I think the result would have been Van der Poel just powering away, which now inevitably was the result. But I feel if you want to beat Van der Poel, you have to not be scared of him. You have to attack him and keep attacking him and hope to force an error upon him. That didn't happen today, but that's probably, at least in my opinion, down to Van der Poel just being powerful enough that he doesn't overextend himself in those technical sections. But power-wise, I don't think it would have mattered anywhere.
You could see that Van der Poel today, first half of the race, wasn't really all that bothered. He sensed when there were moves made that he was trying to follow. He didn't want to take any initiative in the first part of the race, and I think rightfully so, because it is the right tactic to have. You know, you can always, it's a difficult course to judge really where you're at. But I agree with you on the part where you're saying that Nice was on those sections better, and it is probably it's best when you try to pressure him in a way. you should pressure him, but sensibly. And I think the first two laps, lap 6, that attack, I think that was all too early. That was all too. He was too eager. He really wanted to do and to show that he was in good form and that he had good legs, and I think that is fine. But it's hard to say, because we see a Van der Poel that is so strong, and it's gonna, it probably wouldn't have mattered what way he would have battled it out. But I don't know. I may be more on the conservative side. I'm maybe more on the side of, try to surprise him more. Nice definitely had fast laps in his leg, continually trying to, take initiative, and then the pace slowed down again because, some riders came back, and I think it could have maybe played a little bit differently. But it is eventually the race that was ridden by Nice. He did a phenomenal job. He had, again, a very good day on the bike. I think by far the rider that deserved second place the most behind Van der Poel. So in that regard, Nice can look back at a race and be happy with what he showed. Tactically, I don't know. I think he could have been a bit more conservative at times, especially when you had Van der Poel in behind you, and still pulling till like the start finish and then looking behind. I don't know. It is what it is, and it was entertaining. It was definitely entertaining to watch, and he gave us a show, and I appreciate it. But Van der Poel was just there, like, yeah, sure, go ahead. I will pick my moment, and when the moment will be there, you will not be able to follow, and that's what happened.
But that's also Van der Poel. That's just how good he is. And I liked that somebody actually made an attempt to attack him. And I think on this course it's fine. But then let me move a bit in your direction. Because when we come to Loenhout, I would like to see a different approach. I would like to see that, because Van der Poel is not racing Dendermonde, for the people who aren't able to keep track with so many races of who's going where, their next duel is in Loenhout. So in Loenhout, totally different course. There, I want to see him race like what you're saying, Issam. Then he should just stay on the wheel of Van der Poel, don't do anything, really save himself, and then try something, like try a trickery in the final lap in some technical section, try and sprint against him, take a different approach. Because this is also what he did in Namur, and both times it didn't really work because of a semi-self-sabotage action. But in that race, I would like to see something else. But for today, again, on a climbing course like this, I think it was a fine decision to make. Dendermonde is going to be interesting as well with the mud, and with the absence of mud is what I wanted to say, because it's not raining, it's very dry. So it'll be interesting to see how he fares there against Wout van Aert. And just sometimes I feel like Thibaut Nys's biggest opponent is himself, because when he starts these races like super eager, thinking, today is going to be a good day for me, then he locks in. Like today, the first lap, he's immediately there. It's none of this stuff like we saw in Antwerp. He's really there, and he's really going for it. And I feel that's maybe some place he could still mature a little bit more and treat every race like that, and start every race with the belief that he is capable of doing that. And today you could see that also in his riding style, and he also said it in the post-race interview. His dad said it during the race. His dad even said, Sven Nys, team manager as well, yeah, if you lose in like this, it doesn't matter, because you showed what you were worthy of. So that much for the battle for the win. Battle for third was also very entertaining, Issam. I have to say I was impressed today by the ride of Toon Aerts. He was chasing quite a lot. I think 3 or 4 times I thought, Toon Aerts, he's going to crack now, but he kept his head in there, he kept chasing, he managed to come back after being dropped. Van Toerenhout had his moment in the middle of the race but faded. Del Grosso, he was probably taking quite some initiative, maybe too much in hindsight in the beginning of the race, but managed to repack himself again in the final lap. Verstringen had his moments. I think if I just summarize, everyone had their moments. Verstringen probably went too much in the red, just like Van Toerenhout when they tried to stay in the realm of Van der Poel and Nys when they went. Del Grosso took it a bit easier, Aerts as well, and they took it. How Del Grosso clinched third, I don't know. It wasn't shown, but I assume he rode away on the climb. There was a small gap, and then at the finish, he didn't really need to sprint while Aerts and Verstringen were. So that's my best guess. And Del Grosso, maybe not as powerful as Thibaut Nys yet, but definitely more versatile, capable of doing it on any course.
I have to say I was a bit surprised by the way he was racing today, because I think, look, it's fast and it was dry, and it plays more into the hands of riders that have that power in a way. But I didn't see that in him, that it would already be for a podium. I think that you're right. In the beginning, he was maybe a bit too eager. Then, when Nice attacked, I don't know what lap it was. One of the laps that Nice attacked, I guess, but one of his attacks, and Del Grosso just sat and was not able to really push through. And he had a difficult moment. It seemed like he had a difficult moment, but he kind of came back again. And on the last lap, he was there, right in the battle. And Toon Aerts, who, as you said, didn't look the most convincing, was always able to kind of fight his way back into the group. But I was like, it's gonna be a difficult task for him to play a role for maybe the podium. But there he was, and it almost looked like it was maybe heading his way. Was able to put Del Grosso under pressure, but Del Grosso then finally found something in the later phases of that last lap, which was not shown, and didn't really need to sprint. Aerts and Verstringen had to sprint. Verstringen, I think, again today, a strong race on a course, with climbing that when we need to climb, Verstringen will be there, and if he has a good day, and he had today a good day, and he was there, and I think that both the race of Toon Aerts and Verstringen were very good. I had to say that I thought heading into that last lap that Van Toerenhout had the best cards for that third spot, because I think that the way he raced in the middle part of the race, he definitely looked like he was pacing himself well. That's the smartest thing to do. He didn't really try to follow all that much when the pace went up and you had those differences in attacks and all that. But so I thought that he paced himself well in the middle part of the race, and I thought maybe that was on purpose. I guess it was on purpose, but maybe not having the best legs, and he wasn't able to finesse that and finish there as last from that group. So that was maybe a surprise for me on that last lap. And Del Grosso, I think continuing on after his Zolder again with today a strong outing, despite maybe being a little too eager in the beginning of the race. I think still a great result, finishing there in third.
About Del Grosso, it's clear that he has a lot of talent, right? But I'm also thinking here, you saw a number of times, like around the lake section, he was stretching his back, twisting it. It's still definitely a bit of a problem for him. So I was immediately thinking back of like the Roodhooft brothers, like they don't really kid around. And Christoph Roodhooft said that he needed to really have an intervention and tell him like, hey man, you need to take this serious if you want to perform, and you really need to do the work on the core, the stuff that you maybe don't like. That was what he said in an interview with Laatste Nieuws after the race in Zolder where he won. So I'm just a little bit worried there, because you see with a number of riders, like as soon as that back goes, like you're done. Like Pim Ronhaar today, absolutely nowhere to be seen, 25th. He had those back issues at the beginning of the season, kind of got it going again, but then the back completely popped again in recent weeks. This is a course where Pim Ronhaar should be able to perform, but again, like 25th, that's not what everything that he's getting paid for is being put into his basket for. And Pim Ronhaar is talented, but again, like that back. So I'm just worried also, because we're seeing it kind of a lot at that team. It can be a coincidence, but Alvarado with some lingering back issues was the story why she didn't race Hofstade. We had Mathieu van der Poel a few years, of course. Now Del Grosso. Yeah, it's just not a great thing. And you could see it maybe a little bit at some point in the race. There was one lap in which you could definitely see that his back kind of blocked. He wasn't really moving around anymore. He stayed seated, couldn't get out of the saddle anymore. And I'm glad he was able to repack himself and get third. But I'm still worried that at some point there might be a total off day caused by that. I agree with your points on Aerts, Verstringen and Van Toerenhout. I'll just say again, I think that Verstringen just totally went poof when he tried to follow Nice. He recovered a little bit in the final lap. Good final sprint, by the way, but you could see like at that point then just the lights went out. Van Toerenhout came over him. But in that, again, I also think that Van Toerenhout passed himself a little bit too much. Let's look at the entire top 10 then. Van der Poel, Nice, Del Grosso, Aerts, Verstringen, Van Toerenhout. Top 6, those were the podium contenders. Wiesure, a bit of a race in no man's land. 7th place, an okay outing for him. 8th place, Mees Hendricks. 9th, Lars van der Haar. And 10th, Cameron Mason. Was a nice little TV item on Cameron Mason yesterday on the Christmas news. Okay race by him today. Solid top 10. He needs some more mud. He's kind of stagnated a little bit from the level he had in November, but it's still of a level that if it just gets a little bit better, it clicks a little bit more, then everything can become better. Van der Haar, good recovery ride, but the ride here is today. Mees Hendricks, take a bow, take off the Christmas hat to applaud him. He was up there in the podium mix for a while, and just a great ride by him today, and definitely what he needs at this point in the season. I mean, I don't think that there's really much going to happen for him in terms of a contract. He'll probably be with Heizomat as long as that team keeps supporting them or him, because I just can't see another team make a jump for him. But you still need to put yourself in the picture and show that you're on that team for a reason, and the World Cups is where it matters the most. And he's quite quietly been having a good season, almost always in the top 10. He had one bad phase in November, but other than that, it's been quite good.
Yeah, he's having his moments, and I think that is for a rider of his caliber, that is what you work from and use during a season. Those moments are important, and today he had such a moment. He was there coloring the race at the front in the beginning. Did he maybe go a little too crazy at the start? Maybe, potentially, but I think that's okay, and I think that in a way you also kind of profit from it, because you had the good start, you are there at the front for a while. Even if you kind of drop back, it's not gonna be the craziest kind of setback that you will have in a race, and I think that for him, still being able to finish within the top 10 is a very good result in the World Cup with the riders that were starting today as well. He's trying to make those moments throughout the season, and that is important. Also important for the sponsors, important for the team, and we have to wait and see how that will all play out for the remainder of the season and also career-wise. But I think that Heizomat cannot complain all too much with his performances that he has been putting on so far.
Then a few more riders. Filippo Fontana, another good result. We discussed him a little bit in Zolder, 12th place for him. Van der Putten, not a good day in 18th. This is not a course for him. Equally not a course for Laurens Sweeck. He finished 11th, but retains the World Cup lead by a singular point. Van der Poel is going to win this World Cup, most likely. He has 4 more starts coming. Zonhoven, Benidorm, Maasmechelen and Hoogerheide. Sweeck can theoretically win this on paper, because if he wins Dendermonde and finishes second in all the other races, then he will win the World Cup by exactly 1 point. There's of course no guarantee that Van der Poel wins all of them. I think Benidorm is still on to be confirmed, but at this point it's very hard to bet against Mathieu van der Poel unless any mechanical has, and Sweeck finishing second in all those races definitely isn't a guarantee. I think he only even started here because he was in the World Cup lead, so that much on Laurens Sweeck. And I think also on the men's side, maybe still worth noting, Jente Michels DNF today, Joris Nieuwhuis DNF, Ryan Kamp. It's the season of also DNFing when you feel the legs aren't there. Nieuwhuis, second DNF in a row, don't really know if anything is on, couldn't find anything. Maybe I'll need to inform about that in Dendermonde, which is the next race I will be attending. Let's move to the women's race then. There we had another dominant performance by Lucinda Brandt. She might not have had the best start. That was for Amandine Foucounet. She launched an attack on the first climb, but already early on in the race, she quickly powered away. Some 20 minutes in, she left behind a quite large group, which she had already thinned out, but Pieterse went down in a crash, was gone. Géry was still up there, but couldn't keep up. No shame in that. Brandt went on to take the win. For second place, an interesting battle unfolded. Géry faded, Pieterse came back from her crash, and it was Foucounet versus Pieterse. Foucounet definitely proving me wrong, and Issam right for the last version of Noah's 9, in which I put Foucounet on 6th place. That was too low. She confirmed it today on the course with the power. She powered away from Pieterse in the final lap, held her at bay 4-5 seconds. Foucounet second place, third place for Pieterse. Issam, what can we say? Brandt, another win. It really seems hard to stop her at this point. She's been going consistently. There's not really much to remark. Her technical skills are fine. Her power is what then ultimately puts her over the bar. She's become such a strong cross rider. Like now that these cross skills are on a more than acceptable level, that they're like steady with the rest, she can really put all her power out there. I will always remember like that one race in Overijse a number of years ago in her early days, Sunweb, just slipping and sliding. The BLS World Championships on that big off camber at the end. I mean, BLS, the course rightfully gets a lot of shit for it being a former mining soul, and the 5 trillion punctures there were absolutely true. But the course also had really cool elements, like all these off cameras, all these big drops. It had some element to it, and Brandt just completely wiped out on that final big drop there. And now you're just seeing none of that. She's become fearless. Combine that with the power, and she's just unstoppable. Cruises in the final lap. 10 wins in a row. We're nearing in on a dozen wins in a row. It's so impressive, and doesn't really take anything away from Foucault or Pieterse. I mean, Pieterse, other than the crash, nearly a faultless race. Foucault, I would dare to say, a faultless race. This is just what we're looking at in terms of the overall performance right now.
Brandt again today, phenomenal job. The steps that she had made throughout her career are just being showcased every race, and it's just every race is, you're kind of hoping for a battle, but you already kind of know where it's heading towards, and it's heading towards Brandt winning. And the domination that we are going through currently in the women elite category with Brandt is just spectacular. Can also get a little bit boring, I would assume, for viewers, the casuals, I guess, in a way, but it has to be appreciated, and it's incredible at her point of her career what she's doing currently. But Foucault today, hats off. It's incredible to see. I would not have expected a Foucault maybe 2 years ago that she would be able to race on a course like we had today in Gavere. Definitely some technical sections, and she was, I wouldn't say unfazed by them, but as you said, it was almost a faultless ride. And that was also where the difference was made, because for sure also the power sections, and she really had an advantage there. But you can also see that with Pieterse, the mistakes that she was making, and that definitely played a role in how the race eventually played out, and the fact that Foucault was able to hold on to second place. And I think that it was a good race by Pieterse for sure, but I think that the mistakes kind of, I would almost say, made it impossible for her to really bring up a fight to Foucault in the end. And Foucault is on a roll. I mean, this for sure, easily is her best season yet on a cross bike. This was, in my opinion, off the limits. I did not expect it to be. You see the form, and I definitely saw that she was getting better, but today was a statement, I have to say. Today was really a statement from Foucault, and incredible ride.
I think the course conditions really suited her because it made the course significantly less technical. There's 2 different types of technical. You have the muddy, slippery technical with the downhills, and you have the corners, and today was neither. It still required a degree of bike handling, and yes, she has made a big step forward. This was a really good result by her. Pieterse, in terms of mistakes, there was really the crash. I think for the rest, it was quite fine. Pieterse has good technical abilities, but her consistency technically is just not really there. You see it quite a lot also last year in Maasmechelen, for instance, that there's just these spikes where it goes wrong. So that's something I think that she will need to work on over time. Perhaps it's also due to the fact that she's not on the cross bike as much as, say, Foucault, who's really gone for a full European season, a full Belgian season, I should say, because she's in France, so it's also Europe, but a full season on the TV. She's not, like in the past, really doing these many races in France or starting her season relatively late. No, she's been going at it since October. She's been taking the results in Belgium. She's been tackling the most difficult courses, and that, I think, is playing off for her right now. Pieterse, good. Best result so far. Didn't really have a fade. Yeah, in the last lap, she couldn't keep up with Foucault, but she didn't explode, which is much needed up for her. And like we said before, I do think that things will at some point come better for Pieterse. Contract situation of Foucault. I have inquired with a number of people after the discussion we had in Zolder. In Zolder, I said that there was a rumor in Radio Peloton about Alpecin, but that I wasn't really sure where it was at. And you added, Issam, that Ryan Kamp is leaving Alpecin. So that is true. Kamp confirmed to Wielerflits after the race there that he is leaving the Alpecin structure. His contract expires January 1st. They will support him until the end of the season, but then he needs to go. I don't know what is up with Clausel. Like, was that similar? Was there a plan for that team? Has it folded? I don't really know. What I do know is that they got Laura Molengraaf, so clearly they still have some cash on hands to move some pieces around and bring in Molengraaf. Maybe Kamp is out because they're forming a three-woman team. I don't know. Maybe it's Foucounet, Clausel, and Molengraaf. I'm just freely speculating here. I have nothing to really know where this is at, to be clear. I've heard other stories. I've heard that maybe Paul Sousa, through the quick sponsor connection, is going to make a move for Foucounet. I've heard the stories that maybe there is going to be a temporary solution through AS Bikes or through, and now I need to think very deep about what the name of that team is, the Motorhomes team. They are currently also supporting Burquier. Burquier is being supported by them. And well, she just receives race support, and their boyfriend Theo Thomas in there. So I've heard like these different stories, and I'm going to look up the name of that team in the meantime because it's annoying me. But there's definitely like some things that are on the move, and there's different plates being held up. It's the SEB Motorbike CX team. There we go. There's different like possible solutions here, and I guess that to me it's a bit worrying that there's so many different options being named, which to me means that there's not really a clear direction of where she's going. I think a lot of people want to see Foucounet get a contract within the cyclocross world and are therefore more naming options rather than actually having an idea of what is going to happen. But in these conversations with multiple sources, I think I spoke to 10, maybe 12 people the last couple of days about the situation of Foucounet. Nobody really points in any direction. There's lots of rumors circulating. Multiple people tell the same thing. Other people tell totally different things. So what we don't know is where Foucounet is going, but what we do know is that the French cyclocross scene is very good. They had 4 riders in the top 16 right now. They had 2 in the top 10, 11th and 16th. Very good results for them all out today.
Yeah, you cannot get around those results. I mean, that is very noticeable, and I think on the options that Foucounet will have, I think that's a good thing, to be honest. It's tricky because it definitely can put you in a difficult situation where you have to go through negotiations all around, and some talks are less serious than others, and you only find out when you really are in negotiations. So I don't know. To be honest, I think it's more hopeful that we have now several options, or at least several options are being rumored and are allegedly on the table. I don't think that is now going to be a huge issue. I assume that she will find a team, she will find a contract, and will be signed in the very near future. I mean, it wouldn't even surprise me if that's going to be in the next week. But that is just pure my own gut telling me that. Other than that, I don't really have anything to go off on that. So I have to be clear on that. But I think it's okay. I don't think it's gonna be a huge issue, and it's good. It's good to see that there are actually now options appearing. Should have been a bit earlier, but anyways, it is what it is.
Let's go over the entire top 10. Brandt, Foucounet, Pietersen, then Vash, Van Alphen, Géry, Van Anrooy, Alvarado, Van der Heijden, and Gladonova. Few riders here to discuss, also some outside of the top 10 Issam, but to me, standout ride. You might expect me to go for Géry, but I will actually go for Blanca Vash. Zolder was a good start, but the competition was less. It was her first race after others had raced 3 or 4 days. I was really impressed by her result today. It didn't look too promising. She was 10th for a while, but then really cut her way through the field, looked quite confident, and yes, this is a course that suits her. I mean, Overijs, of course, the site of her first World Cup win, that was a really good course, and it has climbing, and this too, like, sure, I will factor that in, but it still looked very good, and she was way up there, really enjoying herself, looked strong on the climbs. Her head went down and not much of it was seen. Again, cyclocross can do so much more with like lap time graphics showing how she's catching up to the front and whatever, but I'm not going to go onto that slippery slope right now. And instead, while we didn't see much of it, just looking at the lap times, Vash, consistent ride, consistent pace, cut down her lap times a little bit and was pushing through. Fourth place in the end, good result, promising. With an even better start, who knows? Perhaps she could have been in the mix there. This is her second race really of her season. There's more opportunities to come. So for me, out of the top 10, Vash, the one I chose, and I don't know if you have anybody else than Vash, or if you want to talk about Vash, take it away. Issam, for you, your standout in the top 10?
Not that there were that many broadcasts in the top 10 apart from the top 7, something like that. Vash definitely surprised me because I think that like a race like today, sure, it suits her well, but this is really a race that if the form is not 100%, you will just see it in the last 2 laps. And that didn't happen. It was a consistent ride. She was able to get through the field after not the greatest of starts, but I don't even think that was a bad thing. You know, if you take it, I would say a little bit easy and you try to just get better and better throughout the race, I think that is maybe a good approach on a course that we had today, because you will eventually get through the race. There will riders that will fall back that went way too hard, and I think that she picked up the pieces quite well and paced herself quite well. So I have to agree with you. I think that was definitely a great ride. I think that Gavere for sure has to be mentioned. You know, that was also a great ride, and you know the thing is there as well is that, you know, in the later phase of the race she was starting to hurt a little bit, and that is totally fine, completely normal. You know, you will just, those are the experiences and the lessons that you have to take with you throughout your career, and there will be years where she will not have those issues in those last laps, and then you will see her more and more at the front. So I really hope that she continues to keep cyclocross in her program, because, you know, she's also quite talented on the road, and sometimes that has the tendency to pull you away from cyclocross. So I really hope that is not going to be the case, and was a great ride. Van Andro, I think, can also be mentioned in a way. Started well, and I thought that is going to be I was thinking that might be the ride of the race in a way, but then she had made that mistake on the off-camber before the pit zone, and from there on, I think her chain dropped, or there was something going on. She was not able to had to run all the way to the pit, which fortunately was not that far. But it seems like that took her out of the race in a way, and she was never really able to showcase what she showcased before that. So that was a bit of a shame. Yeah, I think the rest was not really shown. I mean, Hladonova finished in 10th, but I'm going to be honest, nothing was broadcasted. We didn't see anything from both Hladonova, Müller, Vida Lopez and San Roman. Those are all riders that I would have loved to kind of see some shots from, and there are reasons for that to show, because they are racing, you know, with the women elite, but they're also racing in the under 23 category, and there is a classification for that, despite the fact that it is nonsense. But I think there was plenty of time during the broadcast where they could show them just a little bit, and I think that was a missed opportunity from the TV direction. And yeah, that was a bit of a shame, because now we kind of look at those results, and that's basically what we can do. We looked at those results, and that's where we can go off from, which is a bit of a shame. I think they deserve as well to be more showcased and more shown, because it made completely sense to do that during the race, and yet here we are only seeing them crossing the finish line.
Well, nonsense, I think, because they have a point system based on their elite placing, and
yeah,
in reality, we should also be moving to a world where we have a standalone women's under 23 category, rather than just them racing with the elites, the same as the men have, because we have all these races. And yeah, I mean, today, not that many people, small 70 starters, but there's races like in Zonhoven, or like there will be these races. There were more of them last year, but Antwerp, for instance, the start field is just approaching the maximum of 100, simply because there's all these under 23s in there. And last year it was even worse, because there were World Cups where a bunch of juniors were fielded. So that should change. But back to your points. Van Andel definitely strong, could have finished on the podium, I think, if it hadn't been for that crash. She's still going to stay high on my power rankings for now. Jerry, this is the first time we see that magic. the magic that we saw on the Koppenberg. She wiped out on the inscription table at Koppenberg, and then things kind of, they weren't bad, don't get me wrong, because she's had a number of good results, not on the top 10, but we saw, for instance, in Kokzijde 13th place, Antwerpen 15th, Namur, she was in the top 10, 10th place, quite some distance behind. But what I do think we should conclude based on that is that with Géry, we do have a rider who seems to excel on climbing courses. It's a premature conclusion, but that do seem to be the courses that suit her best, despite having a fine technique. Van der Heijden, not in a great period. Alvarado having some back issues, coming back from a minor illness still, so those things said. Outside of the top 10, or that fight for the U23, I mean, Bentveld, the lights completely went off in the second half of the race, same with Clausel. Cusack was in that fight as well, but she too faded. And then all of a sudden in the final lap, these new group of riders appeared. Ribeirol crashed in the first lap. Traditions never change. Gladonova came to the front from quite far down. She and Lopez de San Roman were together for most of the race. And then they caught up to Muller. And yeah, I mean, Gladonova 10th, good result, don't get me wrong. But I'm not really surprised by that. I mean, I've seen this trick play out last year in Benidorm. I've seen this happen before. So it's a good result. But I'm perhaps more impressed by the result of Muller. Not necessarily because it's unexpected, but just because I want to highlight that she's in the shadow of Géry having a very good season. Like at the European Championships, once she locked in, once she took the lead of that chasing group, third place, maximum achievable. She was not good in the sand, but Tabor 20th, Flamanville 17th, Namur 9th, Antwerp 20th, Kokzijde 19th, and now Gavere 11th. That is a good streak of results to put in as a second year under 23. So I just wanted to highlight that once more because it's been very good. Lopez de San Roman as well deserves some appraisal. 13th place. First race of the season for her started on the 7th row, maybe the 6th row. Definitely a catch-up race for her. So some interesting points here that we can take forward to the next races, Issam.
100%, and I think it's just a shame that it wasn't broadcasted the way it should have been. And I agree with you. I think on especially Muller's season is quite impressive, to be honest, for a second year under 23, and she has been she made a quite a step this season, and where that will lead her eventually, I don't know, but it is promising. The promising signs, and that's kind of what you need at this period of your development. So it's good that that she is now having that, and that's the now the most difficult part of that is going to arrive very soon in her career, and that is what is next. What is the next step that you can make? And I think that will be the biggest question for her in the next coming races and maybe next season and the next 2 seasons. That's going to be interesting, but I think that it is what she has been showcasing so far is very promising, and yeah, it is somewhat in the shadow of Célia Géry, but it is definitely it's there is more to that than only being in the shadow. There, the results itself, they can also be looked at from out of that shadow in a way. So I think that is outstanding so far and has to be highlighted. So yeah, I'm grateful that you did that.
Issam, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
We will be back in 2 days' time for the World Cup in Dendermonde. Then we hit a triple header with Loenhout and Diegem as well. Thank you everyone for listening. I hope you had a happy festive season, and we will be back very soon with more racing. See you guys then. Goodbye.
Bye.